Là? Oui. Bravo. C'est toi qui donnes le go? Tu descends?
Celui que tu veux. Eh ben, prends celui-là. C'est le noir. Allez, ça va pas du tout, ça. Tiens, prends celui-là.
Oui, voilà. Merci. Yann, on est bon On est bon, t'es bon Mathieu?
Oui, oui, c'est bon.
Allez.
Oui, oui, c'est bon. Viens là, nous.
Tu es avec toi?
Comme tu veux. Tu veux? Bonjour à tous et bienvenue pour cette première demi-journée du marché international des arts numériques dans le cadre de Chronique, Biennale des imaginaires numériques, dont les rencontres professionnelles se déroulent à Aix-en-Provence et Marseille et à travers le monde dans un format hybride. Chronique est une biennale internationale portée par Seconde Nature et Zinc et rassemble près de 100 partenaires sur l'ensemble de la région sud. L'édition 2018 a touché près de 55 000 visiteurs et rassemblé 400 professionnels du monde entier. L'édition 2020 restera une édition exceptionnelle dans le contexte de crise sanitaire, avec des expositions qui n'ont toujours pas pu ouvrir au public et qui nous ont obligés à nous réinventer pour penser la dématérialisation et permettre la rencontre entre les œuvres et les publics. Il y a 2 ans, en 2018,
edition, somewhat in order to be able to have it here. We also had our partner from Quebec in 2018, Electra, and they will be present today as well. In 2018, for the very first time here in the south of France, Electra has initiated this international digital art market with the Ministry of Culture of Quebec and all the stakeholders from Quebec. This is the format that exists in Montreal, starting from 2018. This is something that has been proven in time, and that unites a lot of artists and stakeholders from the cultural area. Unfortunately, right now, the context is quite difficult, which is why we cannot unite a lot of people in the same place. However, we organized this special format in order to be able to allow the audience as well as professionals to discover the artwork. We would like also to thank the Ministry of Culture of Taiwan and the authorities of Taipei for having given us this opportunity to discover their artists. The program cites Taiwan and Quebec as guests of honor. I wish to you a very pleasant afternoon and very good meetings that hopefully will bring tangible results in real life. And I leave you now with Mathilde, who will be the moderator for this afternoon. Thank you, Mathieu. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you here on these 2 days that will be very intense and rich in presentations. You will be able to discover the projects of national and international cultural actors working with the digital medium. This afternoon, we will have 8 presentations. Each presentation will last about 10 minutes, and it will be accompanied by images. If one of the presented projects interests you, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will forward your requests. Moreover, the event is totally online, broadcasted on Facebook Live, so do not hesitate to interact in the chat. You'll find the whole program and the biographies on our website. To start this day, we will be connecting with Thierry Fournier, who is the plastic artist and curator participating in this edition of Biennale. His practice explores the boundaries of the living to address issues about otherness in the broadest sense. In 2020, he exhibits his artwork in the Chronique Biennale in Marseille and Aix-en-Provence, at the University Paul Valéry and the Apollo Gallery in Montpellier, among others. He's also a teacher. He has previously taught in Fresno in 2018 and ISAD Lab, and currently he teaches at Sciences Po in Paris. Paris. So now we will be connecting with Thierry.
Bonjour à toutes et bonjour à
Hello,
toutes et à
everyone.
tous. Merci beaucoup à toute l'équipe
Thank you so much for
de
all the
Biennale Chronique
team
pour cette invitation. Et bravo
for having
vraiment
organized
pour
this event in this very difficult
ténacité
context.
extraordinaire par les temps qui courent.
This is a very extraordinary event,
Comme je
and
suis
it's
à
a big
distance, je
pleasure for
prépare une
me to
courte
be able
vidéo
to
que je vous invite à
participate even
voir.
remotely. So as
Merci
far as
beaucoup de
I'm
votre attention et
talking to you
je vous souhaite une bonne
remotely, I have
après-midi.
prepared a
Au revoir.
video that I will show to you right now, and I wish you a very pleasant afternoon.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Hello, everyone.
Les artistes et curateurs.
I'm an artist and a curator.
La pratique consiste souvent à provoquer des confrontations.
I'm talking about confrontations. I bring beings and things together to question their limits. These are situations of otherness which concern collective and societal issues, as well as the relationships between humans and what surrounds them, objects, other entities, living or not, technologies, etc.
Mes œuvres sont souvent des fictions.
My artwork is often fiction, where something behaves as if it were alive. The voice and the body are often present.
Certaines de ces choses nous ressemblent.
Sometimes things look like us. They might ask us what it is to be human, what it is like to be human. I practice a wide range of mediums, installations, sculptures, drawings, prints, online work, performances, etc. Here we see some pictures of Organon, a solo exhibition that I had in 2020 on the campus of the University Paul Valéry in Montpellier. Some of my works involve software, but not always. Sometimes I also create interactive works, exploring the same issues. Today I tend to work with somewhat simpler apparatuses. I will show to you a couple of examples of my latest works that were exposed in Biennale Chronique. So here is the first installation, which is called The Probe, which was exhibited this year at L'Art dans les Chapelles in Brittany. It is a robotic device, a little bit like a space device, which would have landed in this place. It explores everything around it with a projector and a camera, which forms like a big eye turning on itself. Whatever it sees, it is transmitted on a large screen beside it. It talks constantly, it wonders about the place, about its perception, as if it were discovering the world of humans. What is this place? I do not recognize this place. Still, I have information about it. However, I do not recognize the walls or entities that I can see right here. I'm observing it all around me, slowly. What is it? I see it barely. As if there were beings. Lonely beings, but also multiple beings. And also traces all around. I see a body or multiple bodies. Is this a face? What is this glance? Here, it's a total silence.
Le silence accordé des solitudes.
The silence with a loneliness.
Aucun son.
There's no sound. That's what I hear.
Je me recule.
I move back.
J'écoute.
I listen.
Je vois.
I watch.
Je suis une vision.
I am a vision. This is the installation Just in Case that I have created in 2016. It consists of a freestanding screen at eye level, which displays a loader and a sentence, asking whether the person watching it is human.
Il hésite
Then it hesitates as if it is calculating.
et il recommence.
And then it starts again.
Ici, c'est l'installation Seul Richard que j'ai créée.
This is the installation Only Richard that I created in 2018.
J'ai d'abord réalisé un long métrage.
First of all, I made a feature film in CinemaScope based on Shakespeare Richard II, which is played by actors, most of them amateurs in a forest. Richard is a king in decline who never stops wondering about his power and his loss. He is played by a robot that dialogues with the film and its characters in an installation. The robot acts on the film, on the frame, the blur, the temporality, as a metaphor of mastery and loss.
Vous appelez Barclay le château que voici.
Oui, milord. Comment votre grâce trouve-t-elle l'air de ce pays, après avoir été secouée par les mers déchaînées?
Comment ne l'aimerais-je pas? Je pleure de joie de me retrouver encore une fois dans mon royaume. Terre chérie, je te salue de mon étreinte, quoique des rebelles te déchirent avec les sabots de leurs chevaux. Comme une mère longtemps séparée de son enfant mêle les sourires et les larmes dans la folle joie de le revoir, ainsi, souriant et pleurant, je te salue, ma terre, et te caresse de mes royales mains. Ne nourris pas les ennemis de ton souverain, ma gentille terre, et refuse tout cordial à leur appétit dévorant, mais fais en sorte que tes araignées qui sucent ton venin, que tes crapauds rampants, se trouvent sur leur chemin et blessent les pieds perfides qui te foulent d'un pas usurpateur.
Ici, c'est Ecotone.
This is another project, Ecoton. This is a network installation. It actually takes from Twitter live everything that people write about their desires. So it actually does the research. It searches for sentences like I would really like, I dream of, etc. All these posts are then read by computer voices. Their appearances feeds and evolves an artificial landscape that scrolls by coming towards us and that never stops. I would love to go back to Brighton.
Je voudrais tellement revenir au mois de septembre.
I would like to go back to September when there was no problem and no social distancing.
Son dix et maintenant, est-ce les faveurs des hommes que je désire ou celles de Dieu?
Do I look for favors from humans or from gods? Is it what I'm looking for?
Why do I dream of you every Saturday night? I'd rather dream that I won $1 million or conquered my fear of giant turtles.
Je voulais également évoquer
I also wanted to talk to you about Nude, an installation that combines animal skins, artificial skins that I molded in silicon and electronic components. They form a kind of organism which is on a table like a dissection. A completely naked screen is also treated like a skin. We see the shadow of the first hand in the history of 3D. And the Chronic Biennale is exhibiting my latest work. It's the installation Engrave. Placed on the floor, a very large screen shows the image of a tombstone whose inscriptions are constantly being rewritten as if it had remained alive. Its first name, dates, and epitaph are constantly erased and rewritten, often very quickly.
Alors que les morts sont ceux qui
The dead are those who, by definition, never answer anymore. So Engrave imagines a zombie death whose technology would have perverted the very principle and who would continue to bog ad vitam aeternam, constantly wondering about the best way to sum up her life. Obviously, it doesn't work. The project also evokes, ironically, the transhumanist technology of an unlimited rewriting of life, where everything would still be possible even after death.
enfin
Finally, it is also for me a vision of hell, where souls continue to wander and act without ever ending or finding peace. Thank you so much.
On
Thank you so much, Thierry Fournier, for your presence, even remotely. And right now, I would like you to applaud Laurent Pernon. Laurent, please. Laurent Pernon currently lives and works in Paris. He graduated from the University of Paris 8 and Frénois. His artwork explores memory through the experience of the flow of time and the impermanence of things. His research often borrows ideas from history, poetry, philosophy, and science in an approach that questions the nature and fragility of living things. His works have been exhibited, among others, at the Miro Foundation in Barcelona, the Sketch Gallery in London, and in Paris. For this Biennale edition, his artwork is exhibited in Pavillon Vendôme. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Chronique for having invited me, but also for all the support that they have provided all throughout my project. I would also like to thank Biennale for organizing this event today. Within the framework of Biennale, I'm having an exhibition in the museum that is a partner of this Biennale, which is called Vendôme. This is a personal exhibition which is called I'm Looking for a Place When No One Ever Dies. I would like to thank Mathieu Vabre, who is one of the directors of the Chronique, and Christelle Roy, who is the director of this museum. Today, I will not really be presenting this expo in particular. I wanted rather to show you different images of my artwork, just to give you a general idea of the themes that interest me for several years now. To be quite brief, I would like to tell you that first of all, I studied photography. And then, very quickly, I started turning toward pictures in movement. And that's what I was doing at the university. And then, after 2 years at Frénois, I have started exploring digital arts and contemporary arts. I was lucky to be able to travel to different countries and be there as an artist in residence and to be able to create several different forms of art, video, photography, installations, but also audio creations, and also recently sculpture and painting. Here I would like to show you pictures from different projects. I will stop and talk a little bit more about some of them. Some works are exhibited at Pavillon Vendôme. This is the first work that I wanted to show you today. This is a very important work for me on multiple levels because this is the first video installation that I have created after 2 years at Frénois. This installation is called Forêt Meurt, and it has a dress, the dress that is on the floor with a projection of a video above this dress. So we see the body of women who probably have worn this dress. So they appear and disappear. This is also the topic that is very present today in my work, which is the appearance and disappearance, but also time, because today the Biennale is focused on the topic of the eternity, but eternity is also the topic I'm researching on multiple levels from the very beginning, from the point of view of philosophy, but also poetry. A lot of different topics I'm working on are based or turn around memory, but also nature. And I would like to show you other works that are related to these topics. The second picture that I wanted to show you corresponds to the video that also is part of the exhibition in Pavillon Vendôme, which is called Steve Live. This is a very short musical video that includes images from art archives that I have collected all over the world and that I have reanimated because I wanted to revitalize them. First of all, it is a question of memory, of these beings that we did not have the chance to meet, who were our ancestors. This is the interactive video installation that was presented by Zinc in Marseille a couple of years ago. It references the very origins of the cinema. There is a capture of presence of the audience, and the picture starts appearing on the screen and gets animated because of the movement. Here is another picture. This is part of the video that has been produced in 2007 when I was in residence here in France. This is a young character, and his particularity is to transmit through his eyes light. So this is the artwork, the character created around the idea that was very popular in the antiquity, in the works of Plato, who believed that human vision was possible through the projection of light that was done through the eyes. It was a very important and interesting theory back then, and poetically it's also a very interesting theory. This is another video which is called Mountain. It was created through the synthesis images, and different sequences are from the photography that has been made by me during my different journeys abroad. So these are the different mountains and geological structures that I have recreated on the computer virtually in order to give them this movement, to put them into movement. The idea behind this project is to show the birth of these mountains through the video. So we will see these mountains appearing, being born on this video. They're coming from the ground. So it allows us to see the movement of the continent, the movement of the ground, of the mineral elements that we cannot really see in real life. I would like to show you some other pictures as well. I will not probably be explaining them that much in details. Right here, this is a video installation called The Window. This is a small piece that was also shown in the Pavillon Vendôme. This is something that is called a rose, a real video projection of flames on a flower that actually gives us this idea of the consumption by the time and of the time. This is an animated movie that has been done with marionettes, with puppets. It was actually an order placed in 2015. This is a video installation that is called Holding the Sea. This installation talks about our origins, the origins of the living with water, with oceans. This is an intervention in New Delhi. It was a performance, I could say, with a concert, improvised concert, but without musicians, without characters, because most of the light projectors were animated and they were activated by the sound frequency perceived by from the solar system. These are some other small works that I have made. This is a very simple candle. Now another photo from 2007. The time that is lost. Another photo that I have worked with erasing technique. This is another work that is also available in Pavillon Vendôme right now. These are the photos where I have erased parts of the pictures. Once again, we are talking here about the topic of memory and disappearance. This is a very recent work. It's a series of pictures that I have collected throughout the world on the mining sites. So it's all focused on the nature, and inside these pictures I have erased all human presence, so leaving basically just the landscape. And to conclude, I would like to talk about two series. The first one, some of the works of this series, is called Nature Morte, and it's also present in Vendôme. These are the sculptures that are covered with ice, objects that often are related to memory and time. Here, for instance, this grandfather watch. This is the sculpture which is also a self-portrait. They are frozen in ice, and some other objects that are part of this series are also present here. For instance, flowers. This is the work, sculptural work, that has been created 3 years ago. This is a bunch of flowers completely covered with ice. And finally, I would like to talk to you about the project that was recently presented in Nantes, Place Royale, when I was traveling to Nantes. This was a monumental installation inviting the viewers to go and explore it. These were several trees looking like fossils. So they were looking like something coming from a very, very old time. 2 trees that were made from concrete. Something that looks like an island, dried up, something. And finally, characters that are here under these trees or on these trees. And they make us question our relationship to the nature and to the trees. Finally, the very last picture that I wanted to show you, just to talk about the topic that is important around eternity. This is love. So that's a work that is also available right now in Pavillon de Vendôme. 2 traces of mouths that are one close to another and like suspended. Thank you. Thank you, Laurent. Thank you, Laurent. And now I would like you to welcome Jeanne Suspluga. Jeanne Suspluga is a plastic artist, a French plastic artist. She has a committed approach that takes on all forms and all strategies of confinement. She keeps questioning the relationships between the individual and themselves, as well as with the others, while facing an obsessive and dysfunctional world. She explores different mediums, drawings, photographs, installations, sculptures, sounds, films. A multifaceted, transversal work, very coherent and precise, that places the viewer in front of contradictory sensations, troubled and reassured, worried and serene. Her works have been widely shown in France and abroad, in Avignon as well as in Chronique Biennale.
Bonjour.
Hello. So, hello once again. Just before I start, I would like to thank all the team of Chronique, because we have had multiple difficulties. Nevertheless, here we are, and I'm talking about all the artists, and we're very happy to be here. So thank you so much. And thank you so much to Denom, because my subscription to Biennale and my participation in Biennale passes through La Denom. At the very beginning, I had to showcase a virtual experience that was supposed to finish end October. And finally, this is an exhibition that will last through Sunday. It's a little bit strange to be able to talk about the work that has not been experimented, especially in the virtual environment. So for me, this is the very first experience in virtual reality. And I actually did very little in the digital arts, but I don't really like to draw this separative line between the digital art and the contemporary art. I think that today it's the separation is so much minimized, and I have several works that I will present to you that show this link. I will start with a quote, because for me this is the way to assume and to show my close relationship with literature, because very often literature is what inspires me. It's been approximately 20 years since I started collecting texts and sentences that are related to the topics that interest me. So here is the quote that you can see on the screen. I give you the time to read it. It actually makes the connection of the different artworks that I have created. It has been said already, but if I have to say it in just a couple of words, it's about the confinement and isolation. I did not put some pictures here, but this is around this idea of the thick house, which is the house filled with medicine from floor to ceiling. And this is something that psychiatric hospitals inspired me, this closed place. And this is something that gave the tone to all of my work. To talk to you about the experience in virtual reality, this is the dreamlike trip into the brain. Probably I won't be talking about it right now, but just to situate it a little bit within the context of my artwork. As I was saying, houses are very present in my work, but also everything that is like ramification. Here you have the self-portrait, which is the link to Gordon Matarclac, who has done the same thing with the hair. And this is the picture that I have done a very long time ago, I think even before 2010, something like that. But in 2018, I have shown it for the very first time. It was important for me to include it because it was a way to talk about my place as an artist, but also as a woman artist, of the perception of the woman artist. But this is not something I will be talking about right now, because otherwise it will go so much longer than 10 minutes. And also I have chosen the flying house, which is the house that flies up just like that. And to place it into the context, I would like to tell you that I have created a bunch of drawings, and these are the portraits of different people. I was asking people what they would talk with them, what they would take with them if they had to flee without ever going back. So they had to come up with some objects, 10 to 15 objects. And this is how I created these drawings of small houses with these objects. The idea behind it was that all these objects appear as something that helps us move forward in life. But at the same time, these little helpers can also become obstacles for all of us, like crutches. And wouldn't we like probably to cut all the links to these small objects to let the house fly away? Just to go back to the sculpture, I was invited by Marie Charlie. They have contacted me because of all the work that their art center does, and there is an architecture school as well, so they wanted to have different portraits of different people. I had to go back to all the testimonies that I had and to see all the objects that were coming back multiple times, like the bag, the laptop, something like that. And I was able to create a list of, as I was calling it, fetish objects that could also be interpreted differently. And I'm talking about it because this is also the main piece of my installation in Avignon. This is also something that is flying away. And within this idea of ramification, it explains the virtual reality, the project in virtual reality. I understand that you cannot read here because it's too small, but these are genealogical trees, family trees. I am very much interested by different therapies that exist. So all this branching is very important here. This is the technique that is very much used by the family therapy. All the words, etc., that we carry with us from generation to generation. So I started looking at the family trees through the time, how they were done, etc. And I started also collecting testimonies. This was something that could be easily heard during the parties, etc. Somebody was telling about the fact that they had a suicidal ancestor or an alcoholic ancestor, and this was like a pathology that was apparent from generation to generation. So it actually goes back to real stories because I was questioning families and real people. Of course, they could not talk about very, very far than ancestors, but all the pathologies that appeared exist. This is also something that can be seen in Avignon because I have also created a lot of paintings and drawings, 8 to 10 meters, that are there to illustrate all of this. I don't know how much time I have left. This is why I will try to go quickly. Just to tell you that all of this brought me to what you see right below. This is what is called In My Brain. These are also the portraits of different people. I was asking people, what are you thinking about? It was like capturing their thoughts without really thinking about anything in particular. So these were like everyday thoughts. I have to go shopping, I have to probably repair something at home, whatever. And then little by little, it was becoming more and more obsessional or recurrent and sometimes even darker. So I created a series of portraits like that. And the very first time that I have showed it, I found out that what was interesting is that these very simple portraits, very naive drawings, practically pictograms, very easy to read. So I actually figured that when I was showing it, it was becoming very interactive because people were like, oh, probably this person is depressive because I can see here is the dessert, here is this notion, here is that notion, etc., etc. So people were starting interpreting all of this. And it actually became a small Snapchat project that I made for a brand Bon Marché. So people had to look at them in the cell phone to raise their brows and to like go inside their brain to see these neurons with the products of this brand. And through a very simple app, I also saw that people were getting into this trap because they were like, how do you know that I was thinking about that? And I was replying, no, this is the algorithm. This is just for fun. This is what led me to this VR project. And I was lucky to be in residence at Du Verre Festival, which is supported by the French Institute. Not this summer, but last summer. And I came there with this project. I had some doubts. I did not know whether this was the good project to realize in virtual reality, but everyone was very much encouraging me, which is why I'm very, very thankful to them. This residency allowed me to really launch myself in virtual reality because it's not just drawings that you do in your little corner, but something bigger. So for me, this is like a trip inside somebody's brain, and the head is symbolized by this tiny house. So when you put the cask to watch all of this, you start with this tiny box and then you just travel. You travel and you meet, you see the neurons, you see all these different objects around you. So it's like navigating the brain from thought to thought. I was working also with a composer, music composer, who gave this social dimension to the project. We didn't really have the time to develop it right now, but this is what I was trying to show here. So just to conclude, this is the project that exists as virtual reality, but also as an installation. And the idea behind the installation is to be able to visit this house, the house that you can see in the virtual reality. So this is the creation of the link between the exterior and the interior world. But this is also something that is linked to my own personality, because personally, I was fascinated by virtual reality a couple of years ago. However, it was kind of difficult because it gives me nausea. And I was asking myself, how could I create virtual reality, but at the same time make it very comfortable and easy to live through, I would say. So this house is not just a symbol, it's somehow a solution to this particular issue. So sorry that I have taken a little bit longer than was allowed, but thank you for your patience and attention. Thank you, Jean. Right now, I would like you to welcome Chloé Jarry, who is the co-founder of the company of immersive production, Lucid Realities. Previously, she has been new media producer at Camera Lucida, where she had been working on major interactive projects for over 8 years. She is the executive producer of The Enemy, a virtual and augmented reality project directed by Karim Ben Khalifa that has been premiered at the Arabic World Institute in Paris in May 2017. Lucid Realities has recently launched several new VR projects as 123 Bruegel, Condemned to Play, etc. So please welcome Chloé Jarry.
Bonjour et merci à...
Hello, and thank you to all of you, and especially thank you for the organizers of Chronique for having us today here, because in this dramatic landscape of culture and art in France and in the whole world right now, for us it's a huge opportunity to be able to meet together face to face, physically and virtually, for all of those who are viewing us on the screen. But I would like to say that I really appreciate to be physically here and surrounded by people. So as I am a producer and I'm a director of Lucid Realities, a company that is based in Paris. We are here in Chronique because we have a project by Elise Morin that is part of the exhibition. I will not be talking about it today, but I hope you will be able to see it. And I also wanted to talk to you about another project that is not exhibited yet because it's not finished yet, but it is called the Starry Sand Beach. I will not be saying it in Chinese, but this is the project that I am producing. This is a French and Taiwanese project around this theme of Starry Sand Beach. Nina Barbier, who's a French documentary director, and Wan Chen, a Taiwanese artist, digital artist, are working on this project. So the Starry Sand Beach is a real-time virtual reality project. So this is basically where science meets art, because this project comes from a narrative that was written by Nina Barbier around an Asian tale, like a fairy tale almost, that talks about beaches of Chimay Islands, and also talks about the island of Taketomi at the south of Japan. Chimay, this is in Taiwan, and the other island is in Japan. So these islands are covered by sand, and the sand is shaped like a star. This is a reality because this sand exists. But the legend created around it tells us that this starry sand comes from the fact that the South Cross and the Polar Star have met years and years ago in the sky above the islands. They loved each other and they had babies, and this baby star fell into the ocean. They were swallowed there by a monster, a monster that exists in Asian cultures. So the monster swallowed these little stars, and then their skeletons that were rejected by the monster became this starry sand. So the legend is very beautiful. And when Nina came to talk to us about it and said that she was dreaming to make a project around this legend and the presence of this starry sand, we actually wanted to work with her from the very beginning. We decided to work with her, so she started working with Wang Xinqian. It's been a little bit over 2 years since they started working, and they started putting it all into pictures to create an immersive story. So these little pieces of sand, little stars of sand, are foraminifers. These are small elements, living elements. They live in the ocean, and they can have multiple shapes. They have appeared first over 500 million years ago. They are part of the very first living beings on our planet. They are in the concrete that was used to build Notre Dame de Paris, and we can see them everywhere. But in this particular area of southeast of Japan, their shape is a star. Wang Xinqian, who's working with Nina Barbier, put it into pictures with his really special universe. So it's like a dive into the legend and into the ocean at the same time. It creates an experience. Here are some pictures that they used in their work. They started working from these pictures. These are the pictures from this history of 500 million years. So the foraminifers in our story are star-shaped. So this is quite a long story to tell. And of course, the discovery will be made in the depth of the ocean. They will discover different forms of life that have gradually appeared during all this time, this 500 million years. These are the couple of pictures of this project. This project is right now in production, so I will just go over very quickly. And this is the team who is still working on this project. For this project, we're very lucky to have the support of France, CNC, and the National Museum of Natural History, but also Taiwan supports us. We have Taika financing this production, and we are working with the Taiwanese studio. So you see the director of this studio here. His name is Oridi, and he is based in Taipei. Of course, the collaboration between Nina Barbier and Wang Xinqian was foreseen as a very close collaboration. They have the possibility to work, first of all, through the workshop organized in Taipei, then through the workshop organized in the United States. So it's been approximately 11 months. Of course, the face-to-face physical presence is quite complicated because this project was born during the pandemics. So the work has to be done remotely, virtually. And it's not very easy, but I guess it's obvious. Nevertheless, we hope that the result will be outstanding. So this project is co-produced by the National Museum of Natural History in Paris. Probably you know this museum was opened 4 years ago, and they also have a virtual reality department, which is a permanent department. And this department will be presenting inside of the museum, and we are working on a project of the exhibition that will also allow us to show the true foraminifers. So these are some elements just to show you that this project is about to come, at least in the second quarter of this year. So I hope that we will be able to show it to the whole world as a collaboration of French and Taiwanese artists. Thank you.
Merci Chloé.
Thank you, Chloé. Right now, I would like to welcome Barthélemy Antoine Leuf. This is a French visual artist whose creation of optical and digital artworks, sometimes interactive, often immersive, express dreamlike worlds crossed by a contemplative and ecological relationship of nature and elements. The artist creates spaces for sharing his feelings about the forces of the world, dreams, energies, materials, technologies. He positions himself at the place of wonder and infantile craze, as if to claim the part of the dream that we develop as a child. In 2016, his work, Lios, is nominated for the International Digital Art Prize, Prix Cube. In 2017, he presents his first solo exhibition in Lancis, at the Cultural Center of Gentilly. His works are exhibited at numerous festivals and venues in France and at Biennale of Chronique. Barthélemy, it's up to you. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you for Chronique, for having persevered and for welcoming us, the artists, as well as the professionals, right here, so that we would be able to exchange and to show our artwork. I understand that the audience is very different all the time, but still I'm very, very happy and I'm very grateful for all of this. I will not cry because there is not a lot of big audience here, but anyway, I'm very happy that this event is maintained. I would like to tell a little bit more about the presentation. So I'm a plastic artist, but I'm also a director for the documentaries, especially related to the nature and the environment. These are not really questions that I will explore as a plastic artist recently. So altogether, it works. And at a certain point, working as a director in documentaries, it was kind of complicated when we were talking about the environment. So I started positioning myself around other issues that were more sensitive and more easier expressed in plastic arts. So little by little, my job changed a little bit. So I was working with volume, but still using light and video. I have a very rare illness, which is called nordicity. This is a phenomenon that has been defined by one scientist. And this is also someone who defined the term of permafrost. This is the obsession by the North, by all this landscape, etc. And I started questioning myself about the disappearance of the cryosphere. Here on the video, you can see different works. There are some old projects like Black Sun, Northern Lights that are recreated artificially. This is also something that is quite sensitive. I also have explored different shapes linked to the volcanic activity. And recently, a couple of years ago, I started focusing on the disappearance of the cryosphere with tipping points, especially. My love for ice and my interest to the disappearance of the cryosphere go back to the exhibition that I have presented in Gentilly, which is called Inlandsis, going back to the Nordic culture once again. And I was exploring a bunch of different images here. One of the images, probably everyone has seen it, is like this huge piece of ice that falls from that falls from the iceberg in Antarctica. And this is called Larsen C, and this is a screen, so it's like a tombstone. To bring back to our spirits, like a tribute to bring back to our spirits this picture that I have seen. So the installation is basically a screen that is laid down, and physically we see this ice barrier that starts coming from the screen, and it's animated by a contemplative, regular movement that reminds us the wind that you can see on the snowy landscape. If I show you this, I can tell you that this is basically one of the last works that where I worked on the optic arts. And then I went into something else that was actually the medium ice. This is something to give you the idea. On the left, you see the satellite picture. A couple of weeks ago it was taken. Today the iceberg is not completely, it hasn't completely melted, but it continues to move, and I just wanted to put it here in parallel with this famous picture, just to show you that this satellite picture was also something that has inspired my work. But we can see that this ice barrier exists from one side, and finally all the rest is black, inhabited. But the disappearance of this ice is looming with this small iceberg that is there moving around. I have a very fusional relationship with the matter. This is something that moves me incredibly, and just to see the disappearance of this ice barrier on the very small screen, as if we were looking through the eye of this satellite, looking at something that is so far, but that is still very much present. Tipping point. This is tipping point. It should have been tipping point written here. So this is really the tipping point. I will be quickly talking about this because it is presented here as an exhibition, but just to give you 3 points to understand it better. In 2014, Okyokul in Ireland disappeared. And right now is completely disappeared through human activity. So these are the satellite pictures. They show you what it was in 1986 and 0 right now. And on the right, you have stupid glass under the impulse of an Indian engineer. It was created. It's actually the artificial ice that was created to counter the dryness and to have some water in the periods of dryness, of drought. So these two elements gave the inspiration to this particular work. From one hand, we have Okyokul, this ice, this glacier that has disappeared, and also this lab intent to recreate a glacier. And we have drops of water dropping every 30 minutes to feed it. Today, its age is...
J'avais envie, en fait, finalement, pendant la présentation, non pas forcément de vous présenter des boulots terminés, mais là, d'avancer vers des boulots qui sont en cours ou qui sont vraiment très loin. Et donc, finalement, de vous ouvrir un peu les portes de mon atelier. Et cette installation qui s'appelle « Ce qui disparaît se transforme immédiatement en éternité » est une volonté d'essayer d'explorer des formes d'iceberg. Alors, je vais passer à cette voilà. Des formes d'iceberg, de les générer grâce à un algorithme génétique, de manière à trouver la forme de l'iceberg qui mettra le plus longtemps à fondre. Mais en fait, en utilisant un algorithme génétique, je cherche à résoudre un problème d'optimisation climatique et que j'ai appelé également le darwinisme des glaces, puisqu'il s'agit de procéder à une sélection naturelle des icebergs les plus faibles pour essayer de trouver la forme de l'iceberg qui fondra le plus lentement possible. La machine est en cours. C'est une production qui va être présentée à Puzzle le 28 janvier, si on n'est pas reconfiné. Et donc l'idée, c'est de faire un laboratoire fictionnel où des blocs de glace sont sculptés, sont analysés, donc sont sculptés, c'est la première image, sont analysés, et puis le résultat est renvoyé à la machine, et puis chaque génération naît de la précédente, afin d'essayer d'améliorer finalement le modèle de l'iceberg qui fondra le plus lentement possible. Évidemment, le but du jeu, c'est d'amener la machine à penser par elle-même qu'il faut peut-être arrêter de tout toucher et de tout bouger, et que finalement elle arrête son processus d'amélioration, ou en tout cas de tentative de réparation du climat. Je vous montre la petite vidéo. C'est très laborieux pour le moment, mais ça vous donne une petite idée de comment ça fonctionne. Concrètement, c'est une buse sous pression avec de la vapeur d'eau qui projette finalement de l'eau, qui vient sculpter la glace selon le modèle imaginé par l'ordinateur. Et donc par le dispositif d'intelligence artificielle. Et j'en arrive au projet qui m'anime en ce moment également, c'est la manufacture poétique d'iceberg artificiels. C'est un projet Art Science qui implique plusieurs chercheurs. Maureen Montagna, qui est la directrice de recherche du CNRS, l'Institut Géosciences de l'environnement du département de glaciologie à Grenoble, Anthony Delahaye et Laurence Fournaison, qui travaillent à l'INRAE, qui n'est plus l'IRSTEA, mais qui travaille à l'INRAE, sur les génies de procédés, donc notamment frigorifiques, et Christophe Janton, qui est plutôt consultant sur ce projet-là, qui est climatologue. Et la question est réellement de savoir si c'est rentable de réparer le climat. Alors c'est un projet qui est vraiment en recherche en ce moment, à la fois de mon côté, à la fois du côté des chercheurs et aussi en termes de financement. Allô ? Et donc ce projet-là pose concrètement la question de la rentabilité de la réparation du climat. Je vous donne un exemple. En Alaska, des grosses sociétés sont en train de poser des tubes frigorifiques dans le sol de manière à maintenir à l'état gelé le permafrost. Si le permafrost fond, le sol se transforme en gigantesque marécage, et si ça se transforme en gigantesque marécage, les camions ne peuvent plus rouler dessus pour pouvoir aller exploiter les ressources pétrolières, minières, gazières qui sont en train de s'ouvrir grâce ou à cause des dérèglements climatiques. Je pose cette question-là autour de l'Antarctique. Qu'est-ce qui devient, comment est-ce que c'est possible de réparer finalement quelque chose qu'on a complètement déstabilisé, et surtout, est-ce que c'est rentable de le faire, sachant que l'Antarctique est la première ressource, j'ai presque terminé, la première ressource en eau sur la planète, et que son sol regorge de matériaux, à la fois pétrole, gaz, minéraux, et que finalement, de la même manière que l'Arctique est en train de fondre, ou est en train de complètement rendre l'âme, l'Antarctique, est-ce qu'il faut le réparer ou pas ? Sachant qu'au milieu de tout ça, le traité antarctique doit être renégocié en 2049 et qu'il y a de fortes chances pour qu'il ne soit pas complètement renégocié. Et donc cette installation-là travaille un petit peu sur cet imaginaire d'une manufacture qui viendrait finalement réparer un Antarctique qui est complètement en train de fondre et que j'ai redécoupé en petits blocs de glace. Donc ça, c'est l'image que vous voyez à droite. Pour recomposer finalement presque un diorama de cet Antarctique-là. Et ces beaux blocs de glace vont être amenés à fondre constamment. Et ce qui m'intéresse finalement dans cette installation-là, c'est pas tellement le fait que l'Antarctique soit en train de fondre, c'est que quelqu'un prenne soin finalement de cet Antarctique-là et soit presque obligé d'interagir en permanence, à réparer, à remplacer les blocs qui fondent. Alors on l'a dit tout à l'heure dans la présentation, j'ai quelque chose d'assez enfantin avec les choses, mais j'ai aussi quelque chose de très ironique. Et finalement, l'idée de cette pièce-là, c'est qu'à un moment donné, on soit complètement débordé et qu'on ne puisse plus du tout réparer finalement cet Antarctique-là. Et le travail avec les chercheurs relève notamment d'une chose particulière, c'est qu'on s'est posé la question de savoir comment on pouvait ralentir finalement cette fonte annoncée de l'Antarctique, ou en tout cas cette fonte de ce mini-Antarctique.
Slow down this melting of this mini Antarctica, and instead of working on the freezing processes, which are the basis, the absolute basis we have to freeze something, so we will use this big freezer, we will be trying to work with the chemical substances that will be injected into the ice in order to slow down the melting process. We're here talking once again about the climate change and the engineering, big-scale engineering. Some companies are today thinking about it already. And so the question is, what will be the action? What will be the actions by these companies who are working on it for the Antarctica? To open it to private companies, like space is now open to private companies, because tomorrow this will be the biggest water resource in the world. And this is something I would like to finish on. Water, the most expensive water in the world, is the water that is extracted from the icebergs. This is called berg water, and we have the problem of water today. So the question is it profitable to try and repair the climate? Should we leave the nature to do what it does? Or should we intervene and try to repair and try to counter the disappearance of this huge mass of water? So this is it. Thank you, Barthélemy. Right now, I would like you to welcome Diego Ortiz. This is a Franco-Colombian artist born in Cali, Colombia in 1980. He lives and works in Marseille. His work questions the relationship between reality and fiction through the creation of interactive means and projects that offer singular relational contexts. Through his artistic practice, he wishes to tackle the complexity and challenges of the climate change in an innovative way by trying to control his own production chain in an eco-design approach. He has presented his work in France and abroad. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having welcomed me here today. I will just say a big thank you because I don't want to repeat everything that has been said before me. So just for the presentation that Mathilde has done, I would like to start by the notion of the project, because I think that this corresponds best to the actual artistic practices. We are talking about design, about wide and broad conceptions, which will allow us to accept the creation process as something that has not a final aim or does not have to be a completed work. So just to situate you a little bit, I also have studied a little bit like Barthélemy. I have started documentary movies, so audiovisual is another field I have studied. And I have also participated in the research program of ENSELAB, of mobile devices, which has enriched my practices in digital arts. When I was invited to participate in this international digital art market, I didn't really know how to organize all the different works that I have, even though I don't have that many of them. But my question was, which works would really have a positive impact within the context of what is happening right now? So I actually made my choice of everything that is quite recent, but also the projects that are in progress right now. So there are 4 projects like this. The first one is Emotion Tree. This is a very special work because this is part of the public order. This was in a college in Nîmes, Danoflace. And I was asked to create an interactive installation with a vertical screen. So on this screen you can see a generative tree. The shape and the movement of this tree, as well as the colors, are reacting through the facial recognition system. So we have installed all of this with the production unit. We have installed this small camera that you can see in the right top picture. So the aim of it is to register the emotional state of the college, of the students, but everyone else who walks around this particular college. And the question of perenity is very important here, because we go back to the topic of this Biennale here. We are talking about eternity here once again, and how it's also the question of how a digital artwork could last, not probably eternally, but for years and years. So we have been thinking about different interactions, but also about the relationship with the time, how we can imagine the time and the experience that can be renewed endlessly. Because we are here talking about the people who are every day in college, but they grow, and they at a certain time they will have to leave. So it was interesting for us to work around this question of generations. So that's an interesting project, and I think that finally we have had quite a lot of problems. We have received a lot of letters from the League of Human Rights because they were quite preoccupied by what it could, how it could impact the young children, because they're being permanently videotaped by approximately 50 cameras. But then we have provided them with an answer, and they stopped contacting us because they understood that there was no danger, but an invitation to have a critical approach to this type of technology that now is more and more used in different cities in France, but also in different colleges. Now I would like to talk to you about a project that is from a completely different register: objects and shadows. This is also a very interesting project. It was very important for me to be able to talk about it today, because this is something that we have created with a group of people with visual inability. What is fascinating for me when I'm working with visually impaired people is that when we have some problems of sight, we still have a vision. So these people still have a vision that corresponds to a certain topic. And it was interesting to work with this vision. So the shape of all the works are here much more sculpture related. I was working with them especially around the idea, how we can imagine an idea that will have results in the end. They have chosen this particular shape, which is called Braille City, and they were fascinated by the possibility to create the work that would be readable and touchable, because for them the touch is very important. So you can see different pieces of wood that represent words or letters, rather letters. So the city also has the message, but you have to read it with your hands in order to understand it. And another work that is part of this same exhibition is called Archipelago. But at the same time, this is something that we have exhibited in Frakpaka. But the aim here was for people to allow people to touch it. I cannot even imagine what it would have represented today with people needing to touch it, but let's not talk about it. And the other two works that I wanted to talk to you about are focusing on the issues that are very important for me right now. They are called the invisible issues, but this is something that interests me a lot, and I'm working a lot with an artist called IMAN, whom I have met in Paris when I was there. So this particular work is called Tiara. This is a luminous and interactive work. You can see it from the photo. This is this round shape, and in the center there is a captor of the quality of air, and it reacts in real time to different polluting agents that are inside our houses. So this is the work that is created from the recycled plastic and recycled wood, and the interactive plastic, the the interactive aspect is quite simple because we have this capture that evaluates the polluting agents, and we have the logic, the luminous signal that represents different states of pollution, so it can be read very simply, very easily. So it can show whether the quality of air is good. We will have the colors that will be going to blue. And once the quality decreases, reddish and yellow colors start appearing. And at the very end, when the situation becomes really dangerous, the work starts pulsing red. So the interactive logic is behind all of this. We tried to work around the breathing rhythm. So the pulsing is quite slow when the quality is good, and then it accelerates when we're coming to the dangerous situation, like to paralysis or panic. It has this shape of tiara of the crown, because for me it was interesting to put the crown on this precious element that we have here, that is the air. And this is something that has to be watched for quite a while. It's a contemplative work. And the more time you spend with this work, the more you will notice that the quality of air in our house especially is quite difficult to perceive. And we actually find out that the tiniest activity, whether cleaning or whatever, changes and affects the level of the air in our house. So we have to open the window. So this is something that is also in process. It's called The Shape of Things to Come. This is an installation, interactive installation, a little bit the same principle as for the previous work. It's inspired by the bird, the garden bird, the bird that creates a very aesthetical house for itself. So for me, it was also the possibility to get inspired from this, to get inspired from the nests that are built by birds in the nature. So what can we imagine on the scale of a city when we look at the nests to create an immersive work? So the idea was to work with the recycled plastic. So all of this is made of plastic, recycled plastic, and it's transformed. So the dimension is ecological here, because the plastic waste is something that is present everywhere on the planet right now. At the same time, it also leads us to think about the topic of this biennale, because we have in front of us this raw material, which is given a very negative meaning today, but at the same time is a raw material that is very interesting to use. So how can we transform it to give it a new shape, and at the same time to try and change the point of view of everyone? So this is something that will be placed somewhere where a lot of people can see it, to motivate people to go in, and in function of how many people are inside, different lights will be activated, and these lights will represent different moments of air quality in different days and different months.
C'est un peu, si on essaye de le traduire de façon maladroite en français, c'est un peu comme l'utopie des formes à venir.
It's a little bit like the utopia of different shapes. It's difficult to translate this title into French, but it's interesting to see today how we can contribute to the decentralization of the artwork. So probably we are talking also about the issues that have been already mentioned by a lot of researchers, etc. So it's interesting also to ask, what can we do with all of this material once the exhibition is finished? Can we probably admire the artwork if today the artwork has no visibility, if it's somewhere in the garage or in the container and we cannot reuse it? How can we probably take this plastic and retreat it or rework it to give it a new shape, to create a new project, a new object, or a new artwork, a new piece of artwork. So this is what I wanted to tell to all of you. This is my contact information, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, Diego. Right now, I would like to welcome Fabien Léostic. Fabien Léostic was born in Besançon in 1985, and he has the particularity of having graduated from both an engineering school and from the National Higher Education School of Decorative Arts in Paris. He is supported by TRAC Bourgogne-Franche-Comté and exhibits his work in France and abroad in institutions such as Palais de Tokyo, Paris, or Casa de Velázquez, Madrid, or in the independent structures such as Vasarely Aix-en-Provence Foundation or Espace Pierre Cardin Paris. After a 2-year residency with Paris Cité Internationale des Arts, he continues his research within the CACRE doctorate program, Science, Art, Creation and Research. Hello everyone, I hope that you're doing well. Thank you so much to the Biennale for having invited me and for having allowed me to show the pictures of some of my previous works to do this exhibition, but also you have talked about, I would like to talk to you about the project that I'm very interested in right now and that I will be working on in the years to come. So my name is Fabien Léostic and I'm part of the program Science, Art, Creation and Research, which is founded by Paris Science and Letters. I like to see my work as an exploration of natural materials, of their behavior, and I always try within my installations to use the evocative power of the materials. So I'm animating them, making them move, I'm using them in different states because I would like for these materials to talk. What are they telling us? They are talking to us about our relationship to the world, and with the living. They are talking about us and about our relationship with the environment. I try to give the voice to my installations. Throughout my research process, I found out that finally it was not really the material that I was studying, but the behavior of all of this, the living aspect of all the materials. So this living aspect, right now we are talking about the intelligence of the materials when we're talking about it. I am very lucky to be associated for a couple of years to the digital arts, and some people, while seeing these pictures, will probably wonder why. Probably because the technologies are necessary to create and to make these works, but also probably the unlasting effect of all of this is another reason for it. The experimental part of my work makes it very much alike to the scientific research process. To develop installations, I'm working with a lot of different scientific labs that are helping me a lot with my creations. So I'm studying this living aspect of the matter, of the something that is not organic. And this is also something that led me to the organic living aspects. In 2014, I started to work with the Lab of Biotechnologies of the Polytechnical University of Madrid, using phytoplankton. Using phytoplankton in the installations is like a question to all the living, because it's not it that works for us, for my installation, but I am working with it. And using this culture of phytoplankton at the very beginning of the exhibition, is also to question the time of the exhibition. For every project, I'm trying to ask myself what would be the life cycle of all the materials that I'm using. So I'm analyzing all of this. Here you have all the detail of this texture of the phytoplankton. And for this particular work, I was invited just before the crisis that we have now to exhibit this work at ZKM for critical zones. And very fortunately, I was not able to go there because of the obvious reasons, but very fortunately, by the initiative of Bruno Latour, they suggested me to create a new work, to transform this current work and to create a new digital work inspired by the phytoplankton. This is when I have created a team of very talented developers, and we have developed a digital phytoplankton that would invade the environment. So you can click right here to destroy the phytoplankton, and when you click here, and when you click differently, you can also go backwards. So this is also something that you can still visit and do. And Zetkin from Kanswa will buy this artwork very soon. But I also wanted to talk to you about the projects that I envision for the future. The genesis of the landscape will be is the title for now. But this is not the final title. It has started a couple of years ago. I was working with a lab, molecular and genetic lab in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. I was working with a scientist, and we have developed a recipe to extract my DNA. So what you can see here is my DNA, what is extracted from my cells. So by working with this DNA, I was in residence there for a very short time, and I was able to create a series of photographs. For now, they're still called a project, but this is a series of self-portraits that I wanted to present as landscapes to get closer to our environment and probably to question my relationship with this environment. So this pre-project was already exhibited in France several times, and soon it will be exhibited abroad as well. But I'm still developing this project. I have developed the recipe that I used to extract my DNA, and I actually found out that we can apply exactly the same method to extract the DNA from other living beings, for instance, flowers. So it's possible to extract the cells and the DNA from the flower, let's say, and in the scientific terms, we call it a DNA jellyfish because it looks like a jellyfish. So with this project, I would like to open it to all the rest of the living things that we have, not just humans, but all the other living things, to question all the classification that we know already, that looks like a tree, and probably even to move the limits of this tree of all the living that we have on the planet. And probably this will also allow us to map differently all the living things that we have on the planet. Probably it will also provide us with a new point of view that will allow us to be less self-centered. So the aim of this project could be to create a portrait using this DNA jellyfish. And this will be a portrait of a chimera. That will be an animal, a plant, probably a bacteria, probably a virus, because that's a fashion today, because viruses are also living things. The process is relatively simple. We extract the DNA to the maximum of species. We put it all together. It's possible to take a photo of these DNAs. And thanks to the principle of photogrammetry, we can generate a volume and digitalize the volume and create it first as a cloud of dots. Once this cloud of dots is here, the possibilities for this project are infinite because we have to we have to study the topologies of monstration, but also it can exist in the physical and in virtual reality. Starting with the physical reality, from this cloud of dots, we can create a volume. So this volume will be reproduced on the 3D printer. And we will have a sculpture, the incarnation of this portrait. Now the question that we have, what is the material? What is the material that we will use for this project? What will be coherent? When we're talking about the living and we try to find something that evokes it in the mineral world, we are mostly thinking about the carbon because that's related to the life cycle. What is also very interesting with the carbon is that this is the symbol of our decline, but at the same time, it is something that is necessary to make life appear. Thanks to carbon, we were able to exist in the brackets. So I was looking for a certain material that would have quite a lot of carbon to reflect the carbon, and I decided to use graphite because it has a lot of applications in the contemporary industry, in the energy sector as well, but at the same time, we're using it a lot in the history of art because it is also what the pencils are made from, and the artists are using it. Here we have the simulation of what this portrait could represent in graphite. And we can probably think that as an exhibition, it could probably look like this. And if we're more ambitious, we could probably think about something like that. This would be Pierre de Bourgogne, this special stone from Bourgogne. Why? Because the campus is in Bourgogne. And this will be the portrait of all the DNAs of all the students of the campus. Or you could probably come and see me and tell me that you want to have your own DNA portrait and you would like your DNA to participate in this project. So we could do that as well. Now, as for the virtual reality, this is another aspect of the project. The aim here would be to constitute a map, to map the living world. So this could be a project, this could be an exhibition. For example, a viewer could have their portrait made as a cloud of dots, and this cloud of dots could be probably transposed onto an explorable environment thanks to the tablet or cell phone or something like that, and this could contribute to the constitution of this virtual environment. This is something that we have developed with my team to show you this idea. So once the person has created their own portrait, DNA portrait, they will have the code, and thanks to their telephone, they will be able to find their DNA jellyfish and probably even download it. And then, according to their own means, probably they would have a 3D printer or something like that. They would be able to recreate this DNA portrait of themselves. This project is really like a cloud because it includes a lot of different aspects, as you have understood probably. It is already supported by several very important institutions that I would like to thank. However, we are still looking for co-producers and also for those who would like to distribute this project. So if you are interested by this project, please do not hesitate and contact me through my website. Thank you so much. Have a very good day.
Merci Fabien.
Thank you, Fabien.
Nous allons accueillir
Now,
notre dernier participant.
we would like to welcome our last participant for this afternoon, Jesus Tamés, who is the founder of the Indie Studio, created in 2012 in Mexico. The team of the Indie Studio is recognized for the development of exoskeletons and for helping to distribute this technology to patients and clinics quickly and safely. In 2016, collaborations with the University of Houston allow him to acquire more expertise by working with brain signals outside of the lab. Since 2019, the studio is based in France and collaborates worldwide to apply its skills to a maximum of ambitious scientific and artistic projects.
Hello. So, first of all, I will apologize. My presentation will be in English, but believe me, if I did it in French, I would have to apologize even more. So I think this is better for everyone. Now, before beginning, I want to thank everyone who has allowed me the opportunity to be here. This includes Art Vivant X, the Société des Neurosciences here in Aix-Marseille Université, Anne-Marie Renan, for also allowing me to present my work along her work in her atelier, and of course Chronique for also well, allowing me to be here. Now, before I actually show my work, I want to do a little bit of an explanation of where it comes from and the ideas that are behind it. So I've found that I think these two movies actually allow me to communicate what I'm looking for in an easier way. So these are two movies that I saw as I was really young, and they really impacted me, and I believe the work that I do. And it's because of these two ideas that I summarize in there. So one of them, The Matrix, specifically the scene in the end where Neo goes out of the phone booth and he flies and he says, I will show them the things that you don't want them to see. So the importance of seeing things that we don't normally see. And the second one, Finding Neverland, also the last scene when they go across the doors and to the backyard, and it is a beautiful scene, almost a dream of just pure beauty and the importance of feeling like this in our lives. Those are the two main ideas that I try to project in the work that I do. Now, as I was young, I believed that this was something that I wanted to do, create those emotions, those feelings in people. I wasn't exactly sure how to do it. I started thinking about this really young, so I started by writing. This was my first true passion. I've written a couple of books, but I don't think any of them are really good, so I moved along to something else. And I tried acting and performing, but this also didn't fill me completely. I wasn't sure exactly why. And then the last photo shows when I found what I really filled me, which it's an event that we did. We could call it an intervention. And in this event, we set the context of an activity and music, and simply asked people to paint collectively and create a collective work of art in a public space. And that interaction and watching these people there, I wasn't even present. They weren't even looking at me. I who created the space was not noticed, but them, they became the actual performers. They became the art piece. Their faces there, and as I saw their enjoyment, I noticed that was what I was looking for. So I tried to explore how to do this more and in different ways, because this was a basic activity, so it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but it was a good first experiment. So at the same time, I was studying my bachelor in physics in Mexico, where I'm from, and I didn't study physics for any particular reason. This just sort of happened as I went into the university, but it allowed me to get in contact with a lot of different tools that I now use. So primarily, the first two on the left, which are brain-computer interfaces, so systems that allow us to monitor what is happening in our brain, and robots, so which you can wear, wearable robotics or exoskeletons. So these two things are where and are new, and I decided to try to do something with them and explore the reach of what we could propose with this. So talking to different people, and thanks to the collaborations that we had, I was allowed to do two, well, I call them activities, let's say, in these two spaces. One of them is a museum, the most important contemporary art museum in my city, in Monterrey, and the other one is a hospital, actually. So this, I call them activities or interventions. They allowed me to do them because I sold them, or I presented them as half a performance where people could go and do things which were interesting and called people to their environment, so they liked that. And because they were also research, so being in the scientific area, it was also interesting for them, let's say. They didn't really see it as much as art and in that moment, but still that was what opened the doors. And the idea was, how many people can you get there? How many people can be here? And how much impact can this create? So these are two of the main things that people in Mexico care about right now. Not so much the concept, not so much the artistic value maybe, but it's more about how many people, how big, how much impact. How can it help people as well? So this is the first one, or one of the first ones that we did in the museum. We called it neuroarte, which is neural art, which now is a really commonly used name. But anyway, what we explored was the unconscious relationship of people who go to the museum with the art, or with the museum itself, actually. So we used the BCI headsets, the brain headsets that I showed you, and we allowed people collectively to visit the exhibit and visit the museum while we monitored the brains and created the reflection of what was going on in their brains as they watched the art, so that they could later see it, consult it, ask themselves what is happening as you watch art. We analyzed how their brains worked when they liked the art, how they worked when they didn't really like the art. So all of these questions, all of these things are things that we allowed people to analyze in a more objective way, rather than just talking, and then compare what they were saying with what was actually happening in their minds. So that was one of them. The second one was the one in the hospital, and I call it the value of the ephemeral. So this one is I think more interesting to me. It's focused on children who cannot walk. So children who come in with their wheelchairs, and with this robot that we designed, we allow them to walk for 30 minutes. So they just put it on, they stand up from their wheelchair, and they take a walk in a space much like this. So they walk that way, and then they walk back, and they basically do that. It actually isn't even 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes of doing that, and that's it. And then they sit down, and they can go home. And we found that this was so shocking to them, so important to them, that the whole family went with the child to see this, that people traveled from across Mexico to do this for only 30 minutes, for only one time. And so in the beginning, I had a little bit of a discussion with the people in the hospital, because they said this is not going to help their health. But at the end, I convinced them that it was something important for their minds, for their psychology. So this is what it is, and we have done this several times, where we allow patients to just go and walk and experience this. And this brings me back to the woman walking through the door to the backyard, where she is in a world which she thought didn't exist. So this is what we try to do with this piece. And these are just some photos of the museum and the children using the robot for this experience. Now after that, we performed, or we built and designed other concepts which also take place in museums, outdoors, in collective spaces. We like doing open things where a lot of people interact at the same time with the piece. And so we put this all together in a manifesto of something that I called L'Art du Papier. And this is founded in this 4 principles and others, which mainly mean that art, I present, or I try to present art, which is an experience more than something that you just see, and that it relies on technology as a primary mechanism or media. And so right now, what we're presenting is one of the latest pieces, which we call mental translations. It also uses these EEG headsets, the brain headsets, and this is an exploration of our creative mind. So the idea is the question of when we look at these different types of art, or the same type of art but different pieces, we can see different things in several levels, and the question is, can we actually notice things in other levels as well? So basically, we try to explore through a machine which is reading your mind and which is changing in light and sound depending on your interaction with each piece. So basically, there's no light or sound if you're not reacting to the piece, and there's a lot of light and a lot of sound if you're interested, if you're engaged in the art piece. We try to analyze if people are able to see and notice what goes into an art piece in its different layers. So I have divided it in 4 layers, which is the surface layer, and it's just the color that you can see immediately. The memory layer, which is the things that you imagine. The neural layer, which is in your mind, the signals, do they look similar to other things that you have seen before? And the unconscious layer, which is, can I notice so the left ones, the left squares, are what is underneath the art piece, what you cannot see anymore but was there in the beginning. So are you able to notice the layers that you cannot see in a painting unconsciously? Can we see that through your brain? So it's kind of this exploration of how we interact and how we see art in its different layers, in these 4 layers. Some data of the piece. And so, like I said, this goes through a lot of layers of different technologies that we design and create so that we can reach this final interaction. And I like to talk about this cycle where it all starts in the mind of the person, and then it goes again to what comes back to the person. So it's actually the audience who is creating the art. We just create the context so the person can, and the audience can create the interaction themselves. So some data, scientific data about how it works. And so our next, what we're proposing right now with the same machines, with this same installation, but variations, is doing experimental performances in real time, where artists can do different things in a performance, and we can see what's happening in their brains and sort of do comparisons of how their brain reactions relate to what they're doing in the painting. Is it similar? Is it different? How do the signals oscillate as their hand oscillates? These kind of explorations of the brain of the artist as they portray their ideas into the canvas. And also analysis or explorations of paintings which already exist. So going inside a gallery, I think there is art which we believe impacts us in certain ways, but maybe we can explore whether they actually do this or whether they impact us in different ways. So it's kind of questioning of our relationship with existing art and our relationship with the creation of art is what we're proposing now. So here I just leave you some of our links so you can see all of our work and so we can talk to you about any different future work that we can do. Thank you.
Merci. Nous concluons, c'est le moment de conclure cet après-midi riche en découvertes. Je remercie tous les intervenants de cet après-midi et je m'excuse de leur avoir imposé un timing quasiment militaire.
Who has participated. So we will see each other tomorrow and we will stick to the timing once again. Thank you so much for your participation. Starting from 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, we will be starting our event live on Facebook. And I wish you a very pleasant evening. Thank you so much.